Inspire Elsie's Radio. You've been listening to the testimony of the Marillier family. I now have their two daughters in the studio with me. They're going to say who they are and what they do. So the first one is...
Hi, I'm Kirsty, and I am currently studying, getting a postgraduate certificate at the moment, and so that's what I'll be doing until I plan to return overseas.
Good morning. My name is Kaylie, and I'm the eldest daughter, and I live in Cape Town now for the last 2 years.
Beautiful.
And I'm a makeup artist.
Wonderful, wonderful. So they're going to share their journey with you as children. They've witnessed what their parents has been through. And today, many children would have run away, but they stood the test of time. And so over to you, Kaylie. Can you share a little bit of how you entered this journey with your parents?
Because it happened so many years ago and we were so much younger, I will say it was quite traumatic, especially at the beginning stages of my father's illness. We were able to pick up like some of the small changes in his behaviors, in his movements, even in his speech. And I didn't tell my mom at the time, but there were a lot of things that I experienced before the rest of my family did, that I kind of kept away a little bit. And one of those things being my father would drop me off at work in the morning. But because the Parkinson's had affected his
Mobility.
movement and his mobility, a lot of times he would say to me, okay, can you put your hand on the steering wheel while I change the gears?
Wow.
Or will you change the gears? I'm going to push my foot into the clutch and I'll hold the steering wheel. And I just kept quiet, and I think especially being the older daughter, the eldest daughter, I kind of felt obligated to protect my mother and my sister, just in terms of emotions, because we were already dealing with so much, and we were trying to figure out what's going on with my father, and my father was just as stubborn as a bull and did not want to go to the doctor. So it was very difficult in the beginning. But I'm so thankful. My mom is very resilient.
Yes.
And she's also very persistent. And she herself is very stubborn. So one way or another, my father was going to get to the doctor. It's been a journey as a family. I think we've gone through every stage of grief that we could possibly go through, because even though my father is still alive and well with us, there were many moments where we were on the verge of losing my father.
Understood.
And he also lost his ability to do many things. And so for us, it was also priority that my father would always be affirmed, and that we also always acknowledge that he is still the head of the house.
Amen.
Because he was still the head of the house when it came to praying for us as a family and to leading. And my father was always a very hands-on father growing up. My parents were always very involved in the church. They were very supportive towards my sister and I with everything that we've done. But it was definitely challenging for us. I think over the last few years, we've definitely gone through, as I said, every stage of grief. We've gone through the deep hurt and pain and the crying and the sobbing. We've gone through the anger, like if we can just be transparent about that.
Yes.
And we've also, by the grace of God, we've gotten to a point where we have learned to give grace towards ourselves, and we've learned to give grace towards each other, because we didn't experience all the same emotions at the same times. We went through them in different seasons of our lives.
Correct.
So we weren't always kind of aligned in that way. And I think the biggest thing for us is that we were able to identify that we have to have empathy and compassion towards each other. And I thank God for that, because it's definitely made us so much stronger as a family unit. And I thank God that right now, in July of 2025, we can say that we have peace.
Amen.
And it's such a beautiful feeling, and it's such an amazing feeling. And I think the feeling of joy and the feeling of peace that comes after so much hardship,
Yes.
and so many trials, it absolutely surpasses all of that. The feeling and the peace is so
So-
overwhelming that you almost forget about all of
Amen.
the times that you
Wow.
cried.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes. Can I
that's
ask
really-
you a little bit? You
Yes.
spoke now about your dad. What about
Yes.
your mom's illness?
That was hard. That was very difficult. Um, Especially because my mom has always been the caregiver to my father, and so her also being now in the position where she is also needing to receive that,
Yes.
I think it was also difficult for her to put herself in a position of vulnerability to be able to receive that. And we also had to learn as daughters how we need to support
Support.
our mom much better, because she really went through a lot. And I think my mom went through many seasons where she was just absolutely depleted
Wow.
as well on every level. And that's also where we had to step in and have the wisdom and discernment to know how to respond to my mom and know how to feed back into her spiritually and emotionally and physically and try and support her.
Wow.
But it was difficult. I mean, there was a time when both our parents were in hospital at the same time, and my sister and I had absolutely no access to either of my parents because it was during COVID.
Wow.
So my father was on, in one end of the hospital, and he was in, um, what do they call it? Pediatric
Yes.
care,
Care,
and
yes.
then my mom was in what they called the red ward
That's
at
right.
that time.
Because
and
of
we had
COVID.
absolutely, and we had both of our parents just kind of hanging in there, and we would call numerous times a day to just find out how my parents were. It was terrible because we were also
Yes.
trying to navigate our way through all of these things. So now we have both parents simultaneously ill, and we
Wow.
also had work and life and
Yes.
having to try and take care of ourselves, because I also ended up
Wow.
having COVID twice
Twice.
in 1 year.
Sure.
And that was also, it was a lot to go through and to navigate. But my mom's illness had definitely affected us, and I think, if anything, that also helped to build up resilience with both my sister and I. And it's for all of those reasons, and it's because of my mom that us ourselves are praying women
Amen.
as
And
well.
you know what's beautiful is you could rely on each other. You were pillars for each other, because to go through this alone would have been worse. But we thank God that you guys are praying women. And if I listened to the beginning of your dad's testimony, where he said he was surrounded by people that had COVID and he did not get COVID.
Not once.
This is absolutely awesome, because you know, when you have a chronic disease, COVID is something that would strike very easily, more for the seniors, you know, with chronic diseases. But we thank God through it all. Through it all, you had many tears and many sorrows, but through it all, He has seen you through it.
Absolutely.
We're going to pass over to Kirsty. And this, I know, is a gospel singer. And we thank God, you know, when God raises up women. The